Welcome to Lawn Rush. So I just picked up this Ferris Z3X. It's a 52. It's got a 37 horsepower EFI, big block Vanguard, really big engine. It's got the 11-gallon fuel tank. It's got the pivoting front axle. It's got a 52-inch deck, so it's got a lot of horsepower to deck ratio. It's a lot of power here for the deck size. It's got the big transmission. I believe it's a 4400 hydro gear. Very fast, 12 mile per hour ground speed. And I have to say, guys, it's a beast. It's got a ton of power, and it really just moves out. Like, it's so fast, it's scary right now. I haven't gotten used to the speed. I'm used to running this 52-inch Snapper Pro, very similar to the FW35 that you get from Ferris. This is called the SW30. It's an old model from like 2015, and it's I think now they call it the SW35, but it's a 20 horse carbureted engine with a 52-inch deck, and it ground speeds about 7 miles per hour. So going to 12 miles an hour is a big change. I don't think you can mow at 12 miles an hour, especially right now in my area. It's just a little bit too wet, but it's incredibly fast transport speed. Some of the things I really like right off the bat is, first time I put it on a trailer, I used chains to secure my mower, and it had these very nice loops right there built in. I think most mowers nowadays are doing that. That's not something that my walk behind had at the time. I think the new models now, the new Ferris walk behinds, the Sniper Pro walk behinds now have these loops where you can just chain it up. I just keep chains and hooks on my truck, so when I go to secure the mower, instead of dealing with the straps, I just throw the chain on the loop and just back up the mower. And if I'm going really far, I'll throw a strap on the other end. But this has loops on all four corners, which is great. It's got them here in the rear, which is great. So you can throw a chain over here. I've had to I've actually just added D-rings right to the mower, as you can see. And I just throw my chains on it, and I didn't have to do anything. I just picked up my mower, and I just chained it up, and it was really easy. So, and then the brakes were good, so it didn't move around on the trailer. I just drew it back and threw on the brakes, and it was good. Now, if I wanted to, I could throw another strap on the back here. This is why this other D-ring is here, right there, because I can just throw a chain on that, or a ratchet strap, and it'll tighten up the chains, and it'll be good for like highway driving. But this has been really good. It's really quick to hook up. Instead of messing with straps, you just draw it up with the chain. So that's pretty cool. And the machine, the Z3X, had the hooks right away, so I didn't have to mess around. Stays really planted on the ground. As of right now, I like the pivoting front axle. It does seem to help. It actually is connected to the deck. And watching videos on this, I haven't seen this in any other video. They kind of just talked about the axle. The other videos have kind of just talked about the fact that the front axle pivots, but it actually pivots, and it's connected to the deck, and it actually will adjust the deck with the front axle. So it's pretty interesting. So when this wheel goes up, if this wheel goes up, it will actually either lift or pushed. I don't know exactly how it works, but it will have some effect on the actual height of the deck. So it kind of compromises, say if one wheel falls off of the turf or one wheel falls into a hole, then it pivots, but it also adjusts the deck height to kind of compromise between the two heights, instead of just having the mower scalp. I've seen some videos that said the pivoting axle isn't good because the mower scalps, but it will drop and then it will pivot, and it will also adjust the deck height in some way. I don't know if it raises it and lowers it, but it does somehow tie into the deck. So the suspension also ties into the deck. That's pretty cool. I still need a little more time to see that in action, but it does tie into the deck. Going to the controls, this style controls has been an adjustment. I've been practicing with it a lot, but it's a lot different than what I'm used to. As like I say, I'm used to a walk behind that just has the cruise bar that you push forward. This here with these bars, you kind of got to go I'm starting to get used to it, and it's just taking a little bit of time. But another thing is got the oil guard, which I really was wanting this machine because a big part of it was because of the oil guard. Now, with the oil guard means that you're not going to really have to decide on what kind of oil you want, because you're probably going to have to use whatever oil is recommended from Vanguard. So I'm into a lot of synthetic oils, and that's pretty much out of the question. You got to use their filter. I'm thinking you're going to have to use their filter, and I'm thinking you're going to have to use their oil as well, because they're calling for a 15W50, if that will focus. See here, it's not coming into focus, but it's calling for a 15W50 oil, which is cool, but I'm kind of curious as to how that will work in cold conditions, because a lot of times we will be mowing in the cold weather. It can be freezing in the morning almost, and I'm wondering how that thick oil is going to do with really cold temperatures. So it's great when it's hot, but when it's cold, man, it's almost like you'll have to just warm this thing up on a trailer for a minute at a low idle just to keep it a little heat on the oil. And then on top of that, you have so much oil in this metal case. I'm wondering how it does in cold weather. And I'm sure the engineers over at Vanguard have figured it out, because they really did do a pretty good job on this engine. So one of the things I don't like, though, is the amount of effort that it takes to raise and lower the deck. So you really got to jam your knees into the pad and pull on the deck, which is not ideal in my opinion. You're never going to be floating your deck over anything. It's just too much work. You're not going to be able to one-handedly control the machine and float the deck. So I think it's just a little too heavy of a deck. It might have something to do with the fact that it has so much stuff going on with the height adjustments and things like that, but in my opinion, it's just too heavy of a deck. But what do I know? We'll see how it goes. The fuel gauge, I know a lot of guys say it's hard to see, and it's true, it is hard to see. For me, I'm happy to have any fuel gauge, because I'm just used to running this whole mower here with absolutely no fuel gauge at all. So I really kind of thought that was a silly complaint, but maybe it's a really legitimate complaint when you think about it, because this big 37 horsepower engine, it burns some fuel, and I've actually run it out of gas, and it's been years since I've actually ran a mower out of gas, because I know when I'm going to run out. Because with this 52-inch mower, I'm able to run an entire day pretty much, unless on my one day where the yards are big, I'll have to put a little gas in it, but I can pretty much make it a day. With small yards, I can make it a full day without filling up the gas on the 52, but it's a 20 horsepower engine. This is a 37 horsepower engine, and it's got a lot of displacement, and even though it's an 11-gallon tank, I'm curious if it will actually burn through its fuel reserves quicker than that tank, which that tank on the old mower is only 5 gallons, and this tank is 11 gallons. So I'm wondering, while it's a bigger tank, if it's just going to be a big fuel cost. So, I'm not sure how I feel about having this much power, if it's going to cost a ton of fuel. That's more money, and that's a lot of times, you don't want to be out in the yard running out of gas, so that's not ideal if it's just burning through fuel. So maybe the fact that it's EFI, it'll go a little longer without needing fuel, but being that it's who knows, I don't know right now. I put a little gas in it, I put like a gallon in it, and it felt like I burnt through that gallon in like an hour. So we'll see what happens. I don't know, but would I recommend this mower? It's a tough question. This thing, I wanted the biggest and the baddest, but after getting it, I kind of wish I had a Z2, just because it's a lighter machine. I didn't realize how heavy this was. It's like over 1,100 pounds, and the tires aren't that wide. The rear tires aren't that wide, and if it's wet out, you're definitely gonna rut up some lawns. The front casters are big, but there's a lot of weight on the front casters as well. I'm not used to it. I'm used to having this walk behind, which weighs like 800 pounds, and the tires on the walk behind are just as big or just as wide as they are on the on the Z3X, but it's only 800 pounds. So this thing can get away with a lot more wet lawns. I think that if you were going to go with the Z3X, just go with the 60-inch. Yeah, it's a little bit heavier. I kind of went this route for weight savings over the Z3X 60-inch, but at least that mower has bigger tires than the 52. The 52's tires are not as big. So this would be a good mower, I think, if you were doing big contracts. Like this is perfect for like the freeway boulevards if you have a ton of trees or a ton of obstacles on those boulevards where a 52 makes sense over a 60. This, I think, is the machine. Or a big complex, like apartment complex, where a 52 makes sense in a lot of tight areas where a 60 wouldn't or a 72 wouldn't, then this is the machine. But I'm curious to see how much more fuel it's going to use, whatever. I think the hydros are really big. It's taken me a lot of practice to just get used to having that much power. You got to really finesse it, or else you're going to tear up some lawns, because you could hit those bars too fast and you could just tear up a lawn pretty easily. So it's not the best mower for wet lawns. I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to do well on hills because of the tire size with the weight. So we'll see how it does on hills. I don't think it's going to do good. And it's kind of tough because I don't think it's necessarily going to totally replace the walk behind, because that walk behind hugs on the hills so good. The only downside really that I have with the walk behind is the fatigue on the body, riding the sulky all the time. So it's a tough call. But anyway, comment below. Tell me what you think about the Ferris Z3X. Let me know if you want to see some more footage with this mower. And check out the other videos on the channel. You'll see some POV videos of me on my walk behind. And it's pretty, I've gotten so good at running that walk behind. It's going to be a minute before I can run anything like I run that. So comment below. Hope to hear from you soon, and see you in the next video. Bye.